Hey, you're listening to the wrong podcast. Topics today include foul odors, legacies, and social networks.
Wrong! What's wrong with you? What's wrong with y'all?
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you people? Wrong! You do have to tolerate it. It's my show.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm here to talk about politics, culture, religion, sports, and anything else you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. Issue number 1! Speaking of things you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. Ooh, boy, do I have a story to start off with. Dang, this is next level. So you might be aware of this thing called cults. You know, it's much more polite to call them new religious movements, but I think in this instance, cult is the right word. You know, it's a small group of people who are, well, it could be large, but, you know, it's a group of people who are gathered around the personality of some sort of manipulative, narcissistic, charismatic figure, usually in a religious setting, but not always. Sometimes, you know, it's something else. For example, baseball and Yankees fans. I kid. And this story out of Thailand is about a small group. They were just discovered to have 11 dead bodies on their property, and they only had death certificates for 5 of them. So that was kind of an issue. And it was discovered that the leader of the group encouraged his members to drink his urine and eat his feces. And wow, that's some serious, those are some people with some serious boundary issues first. And kudos to him. As far as inappropriate cult leadership things to do, this is way up there. And what I saw in the story that really stood out to me was one of the followers. She said that there was no foul odor when eating his feces. It would only be that way if you weren't pure in heart.
Wrong!
And wow, this guy, seriously, next level. He convinced them to say that it didn't smell bad. And if they said it smelled bad while they were eating his feces, it was evidence that they weren't righteous. So of course you keep your mouth shut. You don't let anybody know that this poop stinks. Wow. It's going to be a while before I hear a story that tops this one. I mean, yeah. You've got all the Jonestown and, you know, hundreds of people dying by suicide all at once because you told them to. Yeah, I get it. That seems like a big deal. But I think this guy, well, you know, you can find the link on my website at this episode 65 in the show notes. So, you know, go look for that. Issue number 2, Harvard. You know, I've got to say that it is super low-hanging fruit. I'm kind of exhausted by it, in fact. It's just low-hanging fruit to point out other people's hypocrisy. To say, no, don't listen to them. Don't do what they're doing. They're hypocrites. Look, they're not doing X or Y or Z. One thing I've noticed is when somebody is like, hey, we need to solve this social issue in our country or the world. Somebody will say, well, what about this other social issue that you don't care about? And it's that's so lame. I'm so tired of that. We're all hypocrites, okay? Let's just all embrace the fact that we're hypocrites. And everybody you want to criticize and everybody you want to praise is a hypocrite in some way. So that leads me to say, Harvard University, man, they are hypocrites. I mean, gosh. So here's the deal with Harvard. They recognize that their admissions policies are they're not quite equitable, particularly to racial minorities. And they want to do something about that. So they've identified 2 places that are really causing the disparity to show up. And the first are standardized tests, things like the SAT and the ACT. They say, nope, this is not a good method of choosing our students because these tests tend to favor white people. And they tend to favor kids who have, really high quality high school educations, and not all of our applicants are from those sort of backgrounds. And this test is ruling these other students out that we might want to have part of our community. The other place that they've noticed that's causing this is something called legacy admissions. And this makes a lot of sense. If your father and your grandmother and your grandfather, they all went to Harvard, then Harvard wants to give you preferred treatment. They want to say, yes, this is a legacy in this family, this is a generational thing. We want to encourage it. We want more of this. Please come. And they do this, I think all schools do this. And, who wouldn't want to say, hey, I'm the third or fourth generation student to go to this university? Super cool, to keep that train going. But Harvard says, no, this is not great because it's privileging, white rich people who send their kids here, who were sent by other white rich people. And we don't necessarily want more of that. So they have changed their admissions policies. They have removed standardized testing, and they have kept legacy admissions. And just gross, like when you remove standardized testing, do you know who they're actually hurting the most? They're actually hurting Asian students quite a bit who do great on those tests. So Harvard is in the midst of being sued for racial profiling. Specifically, they're racially profiling Asian students because they think they have too many. And last I checked, Asian students are a minority, but not in college admissions in the Ivy League. So they've been weeding them out, and it seems like they found another way to weed them out. Which, if I was a qualified Asian student, I would probably be joining the lawsuit. But I am neither Asian nor qualified to be a Harvard student. So I am not part of the lawsuit, and neither are you. But this legacy admissions thing, like it's so obvious how it's perpetuating the problem, right? Because now these kids who are getting admitted, their kids are going to get admitted. Like, you want less rich white kids, but you're letting them all in because they're going to keep having kids. And it's just naked fundraising, I think is the best way to describe it. Now, if there was a thing called naked fundraising, that would be super interesting and controversial, but that's not what was happening. I'm just saying that their motivations are clearly obvious, that alumni don't want to give to a school that their kids aren't going to be allowed to go to, right? Or aren't going to get preferential treatment. If you know your kids are going, then yes, I'll give you, $500 million to build this new, football locker room, whatever the school is saying they need. And they don't want to end that cash cow. They're graduating some of the richest, most successful, powerful students in the world. And of course they want to continue to tap them for fundraising dollars. But here's the deal. Harvard has this enormous endowment, this giant fund that just produces money on interest. And it's nowhere near the LDS church size, but it's really large. And I'm guessing that they could probably afford to have all of their students go for free just based on what the endowment is producing. They don't need more money. They really don't. So, Harvard, shame on you. Stop being hypocrites. Remember, I want to know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you?
If you'd like to submit a question, topic, or tell me how I was wrong, you can email me at listen@thewrongpodcast.com or submit a comment at my website, thewrongpodcast.com. and help me spread the wrong message. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show. I was wrong.
I was wrong. I was wrong.
Listener Gerald writes in, and he's responding to episode 64 when I talk about the hard cases that are driving abortion policy. Gerald responds and says, "There's an old saying that hard cases make bad law. Maybe I'd add something to that like, hard cases make it difficult to present a palatable argument. I wouldn't argue against you that there's a legitimate public interest in protecting fetal life sometime before viability, but I can't tell you where I draw that line or under what circumstances. But I can definitively state, that if I had a 12-year-old daughter who was raped, I would give my approval for an abortion without hesitation. In fact, I'll take it a step further and say I believe that would be the loving thing to do. My daughter would get priority over a life, even an innocent one, that is continuing the assault. Hard cases are no fun, but they're what keep me from becoming a pacifist, even though I'm sympathetic to the philosophy of pacifism." Thank you, Gerald. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening while you disagree. Thank you for writing in and continuing the conversation with me. And first off, I'll say that I, too, am challenged by pacifism. When pacifists make their strongest arguments, I am so challenged. I have such a dilemma. But I am also not a pacifist, and I don't imagine becoming one anytime soon. Let me tell you what I am really encouraged about with Gerald's note here. Gerald is a Democrat. In fact, he's not just a Democratic voter. He has been he's extremely involved in Democratic state politics in his local state. And he has been a state delegate at times for the Democratic Party. He's like really, really, really a Democrat. Like, not just card carrying, like his hands are blue kind of thing. They don't do that, I think. But if they did, I think Gerald's hands would be blue. And here's why I'm encouraged. Because Gerald is taking my most extreme view. And I know I'm an extremist on this. He's focusing in on my most extreme view and then backing it up and agreeing, this is a Democratic voter, agreeing that there should be some limitations on abortion. And I'm an incrementalist. I'm all for it. Like, whatever kind of restrictions we can have, I'll take them. And it looks like Gerald and I have actually come together on something. And we weren't even allowed to come together on this until this, apparent ruling about Roe v. Wade. Again, it's not official, but it's looking like it's going to go that way. And hooray, Gerald and I have found common cause on a very, very difficult topic. Issue number 3, glitch in the system. Okay, listener Brendan, he had my personal phone number and he left a voicemail. Thank you, Brendan. Here is what Brendan had to say.
Saved message.
Tim, Brendan Cotter, just regular subscriber to the wrong podcast and calling with my feedback. There's another weird phenomenon that I think happens, which is the power of networking. There's a TV show called Inventing Anna. True story. It's on Netflix, 9 episodes. This girl, complete con artist, basically said she had this net worth or this nest egg inheritance of like $60 million. And she got in with like high power New York bankers, Wall Street, you name it, and really just kind of duped one person. And then from there it was like, oh, you know Anna? Or, oh, you're working with John at Wells Fargo? Oh, then you got to meet so-and-so. And none of these people stopped to check her out because there was just this power of like, oh, well, you already know this person. You're legit. So it'd be like, oh, Tim, I like Tim. Tim says that guy's a good pastor. No questions asked. I'm just going to listen to that guy and take his recommendation. All right. I need a glass of water. That was a long message. Love the podcast. Bye.
Message marked for deletion.
Okay, I'm going to be upfront. I have not seen Inventing Anna. Is it Inventing Anna or Inventing Anna? That shows that I have not seen it. I don't have Netflix right now. I'm waiting for Stranger Things Season 4 to come out before I subscribe again. And when it does, I'm sure I will watch this documentary because it sounds fascinating. And even though I haven't seen the documentary, that won't stop me from talking about it. Because that's what we do, right? I have a very, very good understanding. I have a good notion of why she was able to get away with this. How she was able to do it. She found a glitch in the system. There's this glitch. We have this thing that really helps us. It's called networking. Our networks really, really help us. We love to rely on them. We do it all the time. We will continue to do it. We should continue to do it. They're super helpful. You just, the people you ask around, hey, what does anybody know about X, Y, or Z? And then you get a pretty good answer, and then you go with what you hear from the people you know and the people you trust. And there's a reason we like these. Like, one, it's super quick. It's way faster. We just had some work done on our house, and we have a network, a Facebook group of neighbors. And I said, hey, does anybody know a contractor who does this thing? And I got some recommendations, and I looked them up and called one of them, and they did a great job. They saved me so much time, and I had so much more confidence calling the stranger into my house to do this thing because somebody I know had called them already. And in general, they're pretty safe. Like the people are trustworthy. They're not going to screw you. They want to help you. They want to give you good information. And it usually works out. We rely on these networks so frequently that we don't even realize it. We don't even realize how frequently we're doing it. And this woman, she took advantage of a social network where lots and lots of money was at stake. And, there was a lot of reasons why people fell for it. She apparently had a lot of money and they wanted some of it. But also because, this is just how we operate. We're social creatures, and this makes things quicker for us and easier. And usually it's very reliable. What she was actually taking advantage of is something that's come to be known as affinity fraud. And the biggest profile case of affinity fraud was Bernie Sanders. He was this stock market broker. He'd take people's money and invest it for them. And he was producing these amazing results, like 10% every year, whether it was a recession or not, whether, no matter what was going on in the market, he was delivering really consistent, really high quality results for his people. And he was a Jewish man in New York, and his name got passed around to just about every rich Jewish person in the New York City area. And they all sent him their money. And that allowed him to perpetuate this Ponzi scheme where he'd take some money from one guy and give it to another guy. And he got to super, super high places because of who he knew and what he was producing and who was giving him money. And he defrauded a ton of people. And this doesn't just happen to New York City Jews. It happens to Catholics and Mormons and Protestants. It happens to people in PTAs. It just, whatever kind of network you're in, there's always going to be some person who can take advantage of this kind of situation. I was just talking about Harvard, and let me tell you why people want their kids to go to Harvard. It's not because of the education. It is a high quality education. Yes, people want their kids to have a high quality education. The reason people want their kids to go to Harvard is because of who they're going to meet. these parents, particularly if you've already gone to Harvard, you know what kind of people you met and how you were able to capitalize on the network of alumni that you were introduced to through Harvard. It helped you a ton. I know for myself, I went to a small private Christian school, and I'm still relying on my network. I get work, and I meet people that, are important or interesting to me through that college network. My parents, when I said I wasn't going to go to their college, they didn't like it. They were upset by it. And the reason they were upset, and they stated it at the time, was that they had met so many people, that their education and the people and the network that they developed through their school had meant a lot to them. It had given them so many things, and they didn't want me to miss out on what they had been given through that school. Well, it turns out my school gave me very similar things. And if you go to Harvard, you're getting the cream, the top of the cream in terms of social networking. Like, I listened to this podcast, and this woman went to Harvard Law School, and it's kind of a joke who she knows. Like, any lawyer you can think of operating at the highest levels of our country, Supreme Court justices and, other judges on lower tiers or people who are advocating in the Supreme Court, she seems to have an in with all of them, regardless of their perspective or their, political persuasion. She knows them because she met them at Harvard Law School, or she met somebody who was connected to them at Harvard Law School. So, of course, you want your kids to go there and get that kind of social network. Like, you will know the leaders of the free world because you went to Harvard. And sadly, you will meet somebody who will try to take advantage of all of that network, even if it's as high quality as a place like Harvard. And so here's something you just need to put in your pocket and carry with you. Trust, but verify. Your network is good. Rely on it. Absolutely. Take recommendations from people you know. Get introduced to new people through the other people you know. Trust them, but verify everything. Like, if there's online ratings, go check them out. See if the person you're hiring has other people that you can talk to. In the case of this documentary, somebody should have just asked for the numbers and said, show me proof, show me your bank account. Let me see where this money is. And she would have been, I'm guessing she would have been upset, and she would have said, I refuse to do business with you. How dare you ask me for this information? And yes, they would have lost out on doing business with her. But it turns out, if they would have just taken the time to verify, they would have been saved the pain and hassle of working with somebody who was working the system. Now, there's one more thing I need to add, and I believe I've talked about this in the past, and that is, if you get scammed, you know what? It's embarrassing. It happens to everybody. What everybody's inclination to do when they get scammed is to keep quiet about it, not to tell anybody. Don't let nobody wants to admit that they got scammed because it's embarrassing, of course. But you need to recognize that your network is actually relying on you to say, hey, I got scammed. I'm a reasonably intelligent person and I fell for it. Watch out for this guy. And that will keep people like Bernie Madoff and Anna from exploiting the rest of us. But I could be wrong. If you think I am, let me know. And let me know why. I had fun and I hope you did too. Bye-bye.